What do we know after 4 games with the Seahawks? They had the week off, much needed week off, obviously with all the injuries they've been dealing with. But through 4 games, what do you feel like we've learned? They've got one really good win because the Lions look like a very good team. Lions look like the real deal, and I think we knew that even then. So that's a huge win. You beat a team that's lousy in the Panthers, who are still looking for their first win. The Giants are not good. So those are your wins. You lost to a Rams team that looks kind of like they might be mediocre. What do you take away from that?
I know that the defense is good. It's much better than it was last year.
The run defense,
yeah. The pass defense, yeah, we'll talk about that, about the great unknown, especially this week, and probably the toughest test of the season to date because of what the Bengals did yesterday, and now that they look healthy. But
they look like the Bengals again, didn't they?
They do, which is scary. And they didn't even have T. Higgins, so they just threw some guy in there named Brandon Irwin, and he had 8 receptions for 60 yards.
And Jamar Chase, his first 2 touchdown grabs of the year.
Yeah, they're very, very good. They're very balanced, and we do know that the run defense is markedly better. I think you can say that definitively. It's only 4 games, but they aren't giving up incredible gaping holes like they did last year. You literally couldn't tackle anyone in those games against the Panthers and the Raiders. I mean, we keep bringing those up because they're just so jarring. Haven't seen anything like that. We have seen concerted pressure. 11 sacks is 11 sacks. I don't care how bad and how decimated the Giants' offensive line was. You get to the quarterback that much, you're doing something well. So up front, looks better. You know, Bobby Wagner being back, maybe it's a leadership impact. Maybe it's just his presence out there along with Jordan Brooks, the guys they brought in on that defensive line, and year 2 for Clint Hurt. So I think this defense can hold its own up front. We just really don't know how a pass defense can handle a good passing attack because the Lions really had their way with them, and the Bengals look like kind of reminiscent of it, and so did Stafford over the middle. Yeah, they could not get anything over the middle against Stafford.
I mean, so did Andy Dalton. Mm-hmm. The first 3 quarterbacks they faced all threw for over 300 yards. So yeah, that's a question. Certainly, that's an area I'm like, all right, what are we working? It feels like you got a lot of talent to work with. When does it congeal? When does it sort of set and like, all right, we're comfortable. Everybody knows where everybody's going, and we've got this dialed in, because it feels like they haven't played up to the talent that they appear to have in that secondary to this point.
And maybe that's because the early injuries. You know, it took a couple games to get Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon back in there for the first time. You get a break. You get everyone hopefully feeling a little bit better, a little healthier. And it feels like this team can improve, though, with that talent. Who do we talk to? Maybe Schlereth, maybe someone else. It was like, that pass defense is too good, too many talented people there to not be better than they are. So, yeah, you get Woolen and you get Witherspoon in there. And coming off a game like that, it feels like Devin Witherspoon is just accumulating knowledge rapidly. Mm-hmm. Week 1, our first game against the Lions, he gets in there. He looks okay. He has those mistakes. Starts to get a little bit better. In that Monday night game, he was a difference maker. I mean, he was the best player on the field. So to see that in the span of a couple of weeks, that's encouraging. And you can hopefully assume the growth of a Woolen and Witherspoon playing together. Yeah, and maybe Jamal Adams.
That's one that I think we definitely know. Like, again, answering my own question, what do we know about this team after 4 games? There are some questions. There are some things, I don't know if you call it a concern or a question. I've got concern about the pass defense. We'll see. But I do the run defense. We know it's decidedly better than it was last year. That's certainly a positive. We know that the schedule hasn't been the toughest so far. Maybe that's why the O-line's been able to do what they've done, tape together the way they've had to be. I mean, they've been pretty darn effective considering how much attrition has already been. We've already seen on that O-line. At one point, you had 1 starter out there, all backups, and Gino's been pretty darn safe for the most part. So, you know, we'll see as the schedule gets tougher. What does that look like? Hopefully, guys get healthier. But the one certainty is it looks like they nailed their number 5 pick. Mm-hmm. I mean, he looks like a stud out there. Doesn't mean he's, you know, we saw the flea flicker he got burned on. He's a rookie. You're still going to see those moments. But, man, I don't know. If you're a Seahawks fan, how are you not excited about what you've seen out of Devin Witherspoon in just 3 games so far? I mean, he feels like, you know, people going, well, why would they go with cornerback? You didn't need cornerback. You needed a pass rusher. You needed a defensive tackle. Should have gone with Jalen Carter, whatever your opinion was. I don't know how, after what you've seen in just a small snapshot, how you're not going, okay, I get what they saw. I get it.
Yeah, we've heard from guys, too, that pressure comes from 3 levels. So whether it's coverage or whether it's bringing Witherspoon up like they did, if you have tight coverage, defensive line can get up there more because all of a sudden, 2.5 seconds, no one's open. The quarterback has to hold for a little bit longer. Then those guys win off those blocks, and you pressure because of that tight coverage. So Witherspoon, the way you can utilize him, and it seems like he might be a very good nickel guy. They utilized him well coming off the nickel. So with that flexibility of a Devin Witherspoon there, Jamal Adams, for his limited sample size that he had last Monday, he was flying all over the ball. And then Quandre Diggs, just the stalwart back there. That defense seems very good. I think now I have more questions, maybe what you mentioned about the offensive line, and only because they were so banged up this early into the season, it kind of concerns me. You're going to have to go 13 straight weeks with no break.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time for guys who already are dealing with things to come back and go through the grind of the season. And you know what? Not just 13. You need those 13 games, and then we're assuming playoffs. So 1 more week, 2 more weeks, who knows? That's a long stretch of the season to go without, 10, 14 days off.
Well, but I'll go positive on that. You see,
they need it.
We're seeing their depth. We're seeing that they've got effective depth. I'm not saying that, their backups are as good as their starters, because they're not. You need Cross and Lucas in there much more than Curhan and Stone Forsythe. I feel much better with the previous 2 in there. But you got to give kudos to the guys that have been thrown in there. Rookie Alan Bradford has been fantastic in there. Again, nobody's mistake free, but what they've been able to do in the way of keeping Geno upright, giving him time, I've been impressed. And I'm acknowledging the schedule, not the toughest so far, but man, I think what we're seeing and what's going to be valuable down the road, as you just talked about, 13 games ago, hopefully everybody gets back, and Phil Haynes is back, and Cross is back, and Lucas is back, and they're healthy. But the uncertainty of, what's behind them, that's been answered really quickly and in a good way so far. So that's a silver lining to me, is like, all right, you knew you had some depth, but what does it look like? Is it going to be, Geno running for his life on every snap? No, they've done it through 4 games. They've done a nice job.
And how much of a luxury is that to say we have offensive line depth?
It's
Most
massive.
teams around football don't even have a functioning offensive line. I could rattle off 5 off the top of my head because I watch them every week, and it's frustrating. But the Seahawks have a great offensive line, and then they have great depth behind it. That's the best thing to come out of these injuries. Not good, obviously, to not have your right tackle so far at this point of the season, and to have Charles Cross on the other side dealing with that toe injury. But you learned what you have back there, and they can hold their own. And then quickly, I'll say on the defensive line, you have that depth as well. Boye Mafe, I think when we talked to Seth Walder last week, remember he said he's been one of the most impressive edge rushers this season.
Yeah.
The way he gets to the quarterback. So that defensive line depth, very encouraging. And what the offensive line has shown in a backup role, fantastic to see.